The class was in chaos. Alien students from multiple species, ranging from insectoids to sleek, feathered beings, chattered and laughed in an uproar. Earth's classroom, a place where most students struggled to adapt to the galactic ways, was filled with loud murmurs and sharp voices. But amidst the noise, one girl remained silent. Her presence was almost invisible to the rest of the class, but she wasn't ignored for long. The girl, Zara, was an anomaly. A human from Earth, a planet known for its violent history, one of countless death worlds across the galaxy. No one could truly comprehend the dangers that this small, seemingly insignificant planet held. But Zara? Zara had seen things no one, not even the most seasoned war veterans, could begin to imagine. And today, she was about to show them why humans had earned the reputation of being the galaxy's most feared species. Zara sat at the back of the classroom, her eyes tracing the holographic display above the teacher's desk. The alien students around her were animated, talking about the galaxy's greatest conflicts, treaties, and the latest political gossip. Zara was different from the rest of them. While others were focused on displaying their knowledge, she observed. She observed the way they interacted with each other, the subtle ways they sized her up. Her mind wasn't just on the lesson. Her senses were on high alert. Every inch of the room was mapped in her brain, every escape route, every object that could be used as a weapon. She couldn't help it. Growing up on Earth had taught her to always be ready for anything. The teacher, an alien with 3 eyes and a long, segmented body, was discussing the tactics of war. Zara didn't particularly care for the specifics. To her, war wasn't just a strategy game. It was survival. Earth had lived through centuries of war. It wasn't about the battles. It was about the resilience, the will to live. Her thoughts were interrupted by a loud voice from one of her classmates, a tall, scaly being from a distant planet called Vornis. "Human," he said with a mocking tone. "Tell us, how does your species fight? You are weak. You cannot possibly match the strength of my people." Zara didn't respond immediately. She simply stared ahead, her face expressionless. The other students chuckled, and even the teacher paused for a moment, sensing the tension building in the room. They didn't know her. They didn't understand her. The Vornis student, sensing the silence as an invitation, took it a step further. He sneered and made a taunting gesture. "I bet you can barely lift a weapon. What is it you humans use? Rocks? Clubs?" Zara's eyes flickered for a moment, but she remained calm. Her heart rate didn't spike. She'd been in worse situations, much worse. Her childhood had been a crucible, and everything she had endured had sharpened her like a blade. But she wasn't here to fight. Not yet. The teacher, seeing the situation escalating, stepped forward. "Class, enough. Let's continue with the lesson." But Zara wasn't listening to him anymore. Her mind was focused on something else entirely. She could hear the hum of the room's energy shields, the slight whir of ventilation systems, and the deeper sound of an incoming transmission, a low-frequency sound only humans seemed to be sensitive to. But what caught her attention most was the movement of her classmates. They were all distracted, focused on the debate happening between the Vornis and herself. Without a word, Zara stood up. The class grew silent, almost imperceptibly, as her movement caught everyone's attention. But Zara didn't look at anyone. She wasn't interested in their stares. She was interested in what was happening outside the classroom. The transmission, which she had noticed earlier, wasn't a random message. It was a distress signal coming from one of the outer colonies. A warship was attacking. The alert systems in the classroom were already pinging in her mind, and the last thing she needed was to be stuck here while chaos unfolded outside. Zara made her decision. She walked to the center of the room, her movements slow, deliberate. The Vornis, still mocking her, didn't notice the tension building in the air. "I don't need a weapon," Zara finally spoke, her voice quiet but filled with authority. "I need you to understand that your strength means nothing in the face of true survival." Before anyone could respond, the door to the classroom slammed open with an ear-piercing screech, and a high-pitched alarm filled the air. An armed team of soldiers barged in, weapons raised, their alien features half hidden behind intimidating body armor. At that moment, Zara's instincts kicked in. Without looking back, she slammed her hand on the control panel next to the door, locking it shut and activating the room's emergency protocols. The classroom lights flickered as the energy shields activated, but it was too late for the soldiers outside. She turned, her expression cold and fierce. The soldiers outside, Zara paused, her voice low. They are not here to protect you. They are here to kill. With a single movement, she activated a hidden comm link in the class's terminal, sending a command to the planetary defense grid. The soldiers outside, unaware of the girl's true power, thought they were in control. But Zara was about to show them what it meant to face a human. Zara's eyes flickered to the emergency control panel. The soldiers outside were trying to break through the reinforced door, their movements frantic. They had underestimated her, and they would soon learn why that was a mistake. Her mind raced, analyzing every option available. The emergency protocols had locked the room down, but that wouldn't be enough to stop the soldiers. She needed to think bigger. The Vornis student, still smirking, hadn't realized the gravity of the situation. He stepped forward, trying to act confident, but Zara could sense the change in the air. The mocking tone had faded from his voice, replaced by a growing unease. "We don't have much time," Zara said, her voice calm but commanding. "These soldiers aren't just here for show. They've been deployed to wipe out everyone in this building." A tense silence filled the room. Zara could feel the eyes of her classmates on her. They had no idea how to react. This wasn't a test. This wasn't a drill. Zara had just made them all part of something far bigger than a simple classroom debate. Her hand brushed the surface of the nearest desk, activating a hidden mechanism that extended a series of high-tech panels around the room. The once unassuming classroom was quickly turning into a fortified command center. The lights dimmed, replaced by a low, red glow. The hum of the energy shields intensified, filling the room with a sense of impending danger. "Class, listen closely," Zara said. "We're under attack. There's a warship closing in on this station, and these soldiers? They're just the beginning. They came to capture you all, and once they're inside, it's over." The alien students exchanged nervous glances, their discomfort palpable. A few shuffled their feet, but no one dared to speak up. They weren't used to this. None of them had ever been put in a position like this before. But Zara had. She had been raised on Earth, a world where danger was constant, where survival was everything. She knew how to face impossible odds and come out on top. And this wasn't her first battle. As the soldiers outside increased their attempts to breach the door, Zara activated the room's secondary defense systems. A low hum vibrated through the walls as automated turrets deployed from hidden compartments, each one armed with the latest in energy weaponry. "Get down," Zara ordered, and the students dropped instinctively to the floor, seeking cover. Zara's mind was in overdrive as she calculated her next move. The soldiers were still trying to force their way in, their weapons pounding against the door. They weren't going to be able to breach it, not as long as Zara had control of the system. She glanced at the control terminal. A red warning flashed on the screen: warship impact in 3 minutes. Zara's lips tightened. She didn't have time to waste. She needed to stop the soldiers, but she also needed to prevent the warship from reaching them. The Vornis student, still standing near the front of the room, scoffed. "You think you can stop them? You're just one human." Zara turned toward him, her eyes narrowing. "Don't mistake my silence for weakness," she said quietly. "I may be one human, but I've survived things you wouldn't believe. And I'm not about to let you or anyone else die here because of a mistake I can fix." The Vornis student's confidence wavered. Zara's words had struck a nerve. She wasn't just another student. She wasn't just another quiet, fragile human. Zara had a power within her, something she'd learned on Earth, something that couldn't be taught in a classroom. She took a deep breath, preparing herself for what came next. "Prepare yourselves," Zara warned, looking around the room at her fellow students. "The real fight is about to begin." The door shook violently as the soldiers outside ramped up their assault. Zara could hear their commands in alien languages, but they were too late to stop her. She had already initiated the lockdown, and now the classroom had transformed into a fortress. The automated turrets hummed, their weapons charged and ready to fire. "Zara, what's your plan?" A trembling voice came from the back of the room. It was from a young Sakurai student, a species known for their agility, but not their bravery. Zara turned and met their wide, anxious eyes. The others looked equally lost, unsure of what to do. Her gaze turned to the Vornis student, who was now pacing nervously. He seemed to have lost his bravado, no longer so eager to taunt her. The fear had seeped into his stance, his earlier confidence now replaced by doubt. "First, we survive," Zara said, keeping her tone steady. Then, we fight back. Her fingers moved over the control panel with rapid precision. The display flickered, showing a map of the facility. The soldiers were still gathering outside, their forces increasing. But Zara wasn't concerned about them. She knew their tactics all too well. This was a standard operation for them. What they didn't know, however, was that she had the upper hand. Zara, the Vornis student hesitated, now clearly scared. Do you have any idea what you're doing? Zara didn't answer immediately. She didn't need to. Instead, she typed in a series of commands, sending signals to the station's weapons systems. The facility's automated defenses began to come online. Massive energy cannons stationed around the exterior, ready to fire at a moment's notice. Zara knew the soldiers wouldn't be able to withstand the firepower. The countdown on the terminal read, 1 minute to warship impact. Her heart pounded in her chest. This wasn't just about defending the classroom anymore. It was about keeping the station intact. She needed to keep the warship from firing, or they were all going to be obliterated. The soldiers outside were expendable, just pawns in a larger scheme. But she couldn't let them destroy everything. What are you doing, Zara? The Vornis student asked, his voice strained. You're going to start a war. Zara's fingers stopped moving. She turned toward him slowly. No, she said, her voice low but firm. I'm going to end it. She sent one last command to the terminal, initiating the shutdown of the warship's weapons. The station's defense systems locked into position. Zara turned to face the students again, locking eyes with each one. The warship is about to fire. I'm shutting it down before it reaches us. How? The Sakurai student's voice trembled in disbelief. Because, Zara replied, her eyes narrowing as the final countdown ticked down. I'm not just a student. I'm a Deathworlder. The room fell silent. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. The alien students exchanged glances, a mix of confusion and realization on their faces. They'd heard the rumors, of course, stories of humans from the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. But to hear it from one of them, to see the confidence in Zara's eyes, it was something entirely different. The Vornis student stepped back, as if realizing just how out of his depth he was. Zara's hands never stopped moving over the controls, her mind calculating and recalculating each move, ensuring that everything was in place. The countdown continued, the seconds feeling like an eternity. Then, with a sudden, sharp beep, the warship's weapons systems went dark. Zara had done it. She'd halted the impending strike. The warship would now be forced to retreat. Zara, the Vornis student whispered, his voice small now. You really did it. Zara didn't smile, didn't gloat. She simply nodded, her focus still on the terminal as the last of the countdown faded. The soldiers outside, realizing they were no longer under threat, stopped their assault. But Zara knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The warship would regroup. They would send more troops. But for now, she had bought them time. Listen up, Zara said, turning back to face her fellow students. We've survived the first wave. Now, we prepare for the next. This is just the beginning. The room was silent. Every student was staring at her, now fully aware of the deadly force they had with them. Zara took a deep breath. It wasn't over. Not yet. The real fight was about to begin. The silence in the room felt deafening after the intense moments of battle. Zara had managed to avert disaster, but the task wasn't over. Her fingers hovered over the control panel, monitoring the status of the facility. The warship had retreated for now, but Zara knew better than to trust a temporary ceasefire. They would be back, and when they returned, it would be with a vengeance. You did it, Zara. The Sakurai student was the first to speak, his voice a mix of awe and respect. You saved us. Zara didn't look up from the terminal. She couldn't afford to lose focus. The warship would come back, and she needed to be ready. We haven't won yet, she replied, her voice cold and calculating. This was only the first strike. They'll be back soon with reinforcements. We need to prepare. But how? What can we do against a warship like that? The Vornis student, who had once mocked her, now spoke with a tone of genuine fear. Zara finally looked up from the terminal and met his gaze. We're not going to fight them head-on, she said, her eyes sharp with determination. We're going to outsmart them. We're going to make them believe that they're winning. And then, when they least expect it, we'll strike back. The room was silent as her words sunk in. Zara could see the gears turning in their minds. The students weren't soldiers. But they weren't helpless either. They had their own strengths. Each of them had something unique to offer. She would use those strengths to her advantage. The first thing we need is to secure the station's main power grid, Zara continued, her mind already running through the next steps. Once we do that, we'll have control of the entire facility. We'll be able to manipulate the environment to our advantage. We need to be smart about this. One of the students, a Grolian, a species known for their intelligence but weak physical abilities, raised his hand. But won't they have the same ability to control the station? What if they counter your moves? Zara gave him a tight smile. That's why we need to make sure they never see it coming. She turned back to the terminal and began typing rapidly. Her fingers flew over the keys, accessing different systems within the facility. She was calculating everything: energy output, defense grid status, weapon systems. Every detail mattered. The students around her were now starting to understand the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just a school fight. It was a life-or-death battle, and Zara was their only hope. Zara, the Vornis student, spoke again, his voice now laced with a mix of gratitude and fear. We're with you, whatever it takes. The other students nodded in agreement, their resolve strengthening. The fear was still there, but it was now tempered by the belief that Zara could lead them through this. They weren't just her classmates anymore. They were a team, and they were ready to fight. Zara turned to face them all. We're going to need every one of you. You may not be soldiers, but each of you has something that can help us survive. Work with me, and we can win this. The Sakurai student, who had been the most frightened, stepped forward. What do we do first? Zara's gaze hardened. First, we need to make sure that they don't know we're onto them. We'll create a distraction, lead them into thinking that we've given up. And then, when they lower their guard, we'll strike. We need to take them out from within. The Vornis student spoke up again, his voice more confident now. How do we do that? How can we get close enough? We'll use the ventilation system, Zara said, her mind working at full speed. We can sneak past their defenses and plant a virus into their command network. Once we do that, we can disable their weapons and communications. But we'll need to be quick. They'll be onto us faster than we can imagine. The students were quiet, but Zara could feel the energy shift in the room. They weren't just afraid anymore. They were ready to act. Zara took a deep breath. All right, team. We move in 5 minutes. Get your gear, get your head straight. This is going to be hard, but we can do it. We'll show them that we're not just students. We're survivors. As the students scattered to prepare, Zara returned her attention to the terminal. She couldn't afford to waste any more time. The warship was on its way back. They had to be ready. Her hands moved quickly, and she set the final steps into motion. The countdown was already ticking down. The warship would be back in 30 minutes, and that was all the time she had to finish the mission. Zara's mind was a flurry of thoughts, but one thing was crystal clear. This was no longer just about defending the classroom. It was about stopping the warship. It was about proving to the galaxy that Deathworlders were not to be underestimated. She would not let them fail. The countdown had already started, and the adrenaline surged through Zara's veins. The preparations were almost complete, but Zara could feel the tension in the air. Each passing minute was a reminder that they were racing against time. She had made a plan, but there was always the risk that it could fail. The stakes were higher than ever. If they didn't succeed, the warship would wipe them out with ease. The students gathered around her, their faces grim but determined. Zara knew they weren't soldiers. They weren't trained for this kind of battle. But what they had was something even more powerful: human willpower, the kind that could push anyone to overcome insurmountable odds. Zara quickly scanned the faces of the group, assessing their readiness. The Vornis student, who had once doubted her, now had a fierce look in his eyes, no longer showing fear. The Sakurai student, who had been paralyzed by his own terror earlier, was now gripping his weapon tightly, nodding at Zara with trust. They were ready. Zara stood in front of the control panel, her mind in overdrive. The ventilation system was their way in. It would lead them through the facility undetected. Once inside the warship, they had only one objective: get to the command center, install the virus, and shut down the ship's weapon systems. All right, everyone, Zara began, her voice steady and commanding. We move now. Stick to the plan. We do this quietly and quickly. Our lives depend on it. Without another word, they slipped into the darkened corridors, their steps soft but urgent. Zara led the way, navigating the maze-like ventilation ducts. They couldn't afford any noise, any mistake. The enemy was close, and the slightest sound could give them away. After what felt like an eternity, they reached their target, an air vent just outside the warship's control room. Zara crouched down and peered through the grate. The room inside was dimly lit, with the hum of machinery filling the air. Zara's eyes scanned the area, noting the location of the enemy guards and their patrol routes. 2 guards by the main entrance, Zara whispered. We'll take them out quietly. The Grolian student, a quick thinker with exceptional agility, nodded and slipped through the shadows. He moved with the grace of a predator, his footsteps silent as he approached the guards. The first one was down in seconds, a quick but deadly strike to the neck. The second guard didn't even see it coming. The Grolian made quick work of him, leaving no trace of their presence. Zara signaled for the others to follow. They slipped into the control room, the virus data already loaded onto a portable drive. Zara's heart pounded in her chest as she approached the main terminal. The Sakurai student was by her side, his hand steady as he connected the drive to the terminal. We only have a few minutes, Zara muttered, watching the countdown tick away. The Vornis student glanced at the door nervously. Are you sure this will work? Zara's voice was firm, unwavering. It has to. If it doesn't, we're dead. As the virus began to upload, Zara monitored the status on her terminal. The system was resisting, but it was only a matter of time before it was overridden. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she glanced over her shoulder. The sound of boots pounding the floor echoed through the hallways. They had to be quick. 1 minute left, Zara said, urgency creeping into her voice. Suddenly, the doors to the control room flung open, and a group of heavily armed soldiers stormed in. The students froze for a second, caught off guard. Zara's instincts kicked in. She didn't hesitate. With a shout, she dove towards the nearest soldier, knocking him off balance. In that split second, the Vornis student grabbed his weapon and fired, incapacitating the rest of the soldiers in a matter of seconds. Go, 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 Zara shouted, her heart racing. The upload finished just in time, and the terminal screen flashed green. The virus had successfully infiltrated their system. Zara gave one last glance at the terminal before turning to run. They had to leave before the reinforcements arrived. The facility's emergency alarms blared as they sprinted through the halls, but Zara had no intention of stopping. They reached the air vents again, crawling back through the ducts with the same speed they had come. The warship's weapon systems were down, and the soldiers were disoriented, struggling to regain control of the ship. They had bought themselves time they would use to destroy the invaders once and for all. They emerged from the vents, now back in the facility's main hall. Zara looked around at the exhausted but determined faces of the students. They were alive. They had done it. They had taken on the warship and won. But Zara knew that this was only the beginning. The war was far from over. Nice work, everyone, Zara said, her voice carrying a weight of gratitude. We've won today, but we still have more to do. The galaxy needs to know what happened here. We won't stop until they do. With that, Zara led the way forward, the students rallying behind her. They had faced impossible odds, but they had overcome them. And with Zara leading them, they knew that victory was within their reach.